Hello friends, I am Andrea, and today I'll be talking a little about CSS Combinators, okay? And how we can precisely select some elements, some CSS selectors and or HTML elements, okay? So let's start thinking about what are they? What are combinators? And according to the MDN web doc site, combinators combine selectors, combine HTML elements, and they actually state the relationship between these two CSS selectors, okay? So we're going to state the relationship between the two CSS selectors, and then we are going to select one of those, okay? One of those two CSS selectors. And how do we do that? We just need to place them between the two CSS selectors. And we're going to place them, but them, when I say them, I'm talking about the simple space, the greater than sign, the plus sign, and the tilde sign, okay? So the first one is the Descendant Selector, which is the simple space. The simple space is used to select all elements that are descendants of a specific element. Okay? So when we talk about combinators and creating or stating relationships between HTML elements, it is easier if we think as they were a family. For example, if I would pick my grandmother as reference, I can say that I am a descendant from my grandmother, right? I am a descendant. My cousins, they are also descendants. My sister, she is a descendant of my grandmother. So if I would use the simple space selector, I would select me, my cousins, my mother, my aunts, my uncles, and probably my children when I have children, right? We are all my grandmother's descendants, okay? So, as I have mentioned before, all we have to do is to place the symbol or the sign between the two CSS selectors, okay? Just as we have here. The second combinator is the child selector, which is the greater than sign. And we use the greater than sign to select all elements that are the children of a specified element. So children, they are also descendants, but not all descendants are children of an element, okay? So again, if we think about a family, my mother, she is a children of my grandmother, but I am not. So if I would use this selector, this combinator, I would not choose me or my sister or my children. I would not select this. I would only select my mother and her sisters and brothers, which are my uncles and aunts, okay? So again, we just have to place the sign, the symbol between the two CSS selectors, okay? The third one is the adjacent sibling selector, and it is used to select an element that is directly after another specific element, okay? So we just have to place the plus sign between the two CSS selectors, but there are two important things we have to remember. The first one, sibling elements must have the same parent element, always, okay? And the second thing we have to remember is adjacent means immediately following. So let's think about a family again. If I want to select probably one children, a grandmother's children, okay? If I use my mother as reference, my mother is the first child. If my mother were the first child, and I used the adjacent sibling selector, I would select only the child that came just after my mother, okay? So if my mother is the first child, in this case, I would select only the second child. The third child would not be selected, okay? Because it's not an immediate following element. And the last one is the general sibling selector, which is represented by the tilde sign. And it is used to select all elements that are next siblings of a specified element. So this time I really want to select all siblings, okay? And siblings that come after one specific element, okay? So again, if my mother were the first child, now I would select all the other childs, the second child, the third child, the fourth child, and all my uncles and aunts, okay? And if I had as a reference the second child, the siblings that would be selected would be the third child, the fourth child, the fifth child, and so on. The first child would not be selected because the first child comes before the second one, which in this example is our reference, okay? So again, all we have to do is to place the tilde symbol, the tilde sign, between the two CSS selectors. Now guys, I want to show you some examples of how to apply those signs, okay? So here I have a very simple HTML code, and I have a body, and inside I have one div, and I have 5 paragraphs. The first 3 paragraphs are inside this div, and the 4th and 5th paragraph, they are outside the div, okay? So all we are doing now is we are giving the value, the color violet, to the background color of the div. Once I have only one div, this div presents or shows a violet background, okay? Now I'm going to use the first combinator, which is the simple space, and then I'm going to add the p element. Now what do we have? What we have is that what we are doing here is that we are selecting all p elements that are descendants of a div. And paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 are descendants. They are actually direct descendants of the div. They would be children, okay? But the third paragraph is not a children, but it is still a descendant. So it's going to be selected along with the first and the second paragraphs, okay? Now I'm going to add the greater than sign. And now I'm stating that I only want to select all p elements that are direct descendants of the div, or in other words, children. And it is true only for the first and the second paragraphs. They are direct descendants of the div. They are children of the div. The paragraph 3 is not a children. It is a descendant. If the div was the grandmother, the paragraph 3 would be the grandchildren, okay, a grandchild. So it's not going to be selected because it is not a child. Now we are going to use the plus sign. What I do when I add the plus sign is that I am stating now that I want to select all, actually the direct sibling of the div, okay? So I want to select the element that comes just after the div. And it is true only for the fourth paragraph, paragraph number 4. Paragraph number 4 is a sibling of the div. And it is the next element, the exact next element, okay, after the div. And the last sign is the tilde sign. So when I add the tilde sign, I state that I want to select the next sibling and all the others that goes after this next sibling, okay? And it is true for paragraph 4 and paragraph 5. Paragraph 4 is the immediately after children, and paragraph 5 is after too, but it's not immediately after. But when I use the tilde sign, I am going to select all the next siblings. Okay? I hope I could explain a little. I'm sorry, it is a challenge to explain that in English, okay? But I hope you could understand what's happening here. And I will be sharing this code pen with you guys so that you can use the code pen. You can try applying other combinators. And I wish you all a very good semester and see you.